Okay, we are gonna give it about 30 more seconds, then we're gonna hop into it because this is a pretty dense topic for us to cover in 30 minutes. And I want to make sure that I give you as much information as will serve you as possible. So I'll just give people a few more moments to join us. Hi, Juliet. Good to see you online. Katie McDonald. Yay. Hi, everyone. I was a little I was sad that we're wrapping up because we've had such great conversations with the crews that have been able to join us regularly or even pop in every once in a while. And thank you, Valerie. I thought for the finale, I would go a little fancier. Oh, yeah, new background, everyone. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. This is just like friends hanging out. And all right, we are at 12:01. So we are going to hop into it. What we're talking about today are just some strategies we can use for knowing when to have a conversation, when to walk away. Obviously, this entire series has been focused around how do we have different conversations? How do we have different conversations with ourselves and with other people? And I feel like every day that we are working with a client, I am reminded firsthand how important it is for us to have more tools to be able to show up differently in our conversations. Because when we can have better conversations, we're better leaders and we can build better teams. This topic of repair feels particularly heavy right now. This has probably been one of the top most requested topics for us to explore. And it's one that, for me personally, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about, researching, talking to people, gathering stories. And so, what I'm going to share with you are just some of the insights that we've gathered to this point. As always, for those of you who it's the first time you're joining us, I just want to take a moment to review logistics. So, enable captions if you need to. I saw somebody already did, and that's awesome. That can be really effective because I know sometimes I can talk quickly, especially if we're in this 30-minute time frame. Please do whatever you need to do to be present, whether that's stand, stretch, turn off the cell phone notifications, close your inbox so you can be present for the next 27 minutes. And then finally, we want you to share in chat. You can always send Teresa a direct message if there's anything specific you want to talk with her about or to ask questions. But also you can share in chat as we're going through it. So here is our roadmap for today. When we talk about this idea of repair, I think of it as this bigger arching thing for us to think about. But really, what we're doing is going when something happens or has perpetually happened in a relationship, and we feel like we need to either move forward, figure out how we repair. There's a couple of different things, a couple of different perspectives I want us to explore today. That we want to explore: when do we repair? When do we try to repair a relationship? When do we evolve? Let the relationship evolve into what it needs to, and perhaps most importantly, when do we need to let it go? Now, some of you may be hearing what sounds like a jackhammer. You may not. It is very loud. We are in a space with creatives, so somebody is making some magic today. All right. We're going to spend some time with conversation starters. This is something that we often get requests for, of just how do I start that conversation? So we're going to share with you some conversation starters for when maybe you were the person who was harmed, and how might you start a potential repair conversation when you're looking for it from someone else. And then when you realize you're the one who caused the issues. And then we're just going to talk about next steps of this journey that we've been on for this last year together, and what that all looks like. Okay. So when we think about this idea of repair, a couple of the things that have become very clear to us in this work, personally, professionally, there's two key things I want to highlight. The first is that there tends to be this belief that repair only needs to happen in big moments and really obvious moments of whether it's regrettable events, whether we maybe didn't show up at our best, maybe we were intentionally not showing up at our best. And while those events happen and those absolutely need to be repaired, what I'm seeing is all these little moments when we push past each other, when we aren't paying attention, when we say something and maybe we didn't mean it, It's all these little micro cuts that can do a ton of damage to a relationship. So when we think about repair today, I don't want you to just think about it in terms of the big events. I want you to think about it in the small moments. Those moments when you leave a meeting and you go, shoot, I don't know what happened, but that did not go well, or that didn't feel good, or I can tell that I was particularly maybe aggressive in that meeting. I want you to look for the small moments of repair, because it's in those moments when the heat isn't as high that we not only can reinforce and build our muscle up, but also that's what we're doing to make sure that the relationship doesn't, I think of it as icebergs almost. They just start to float away from each other. And sometimes they get too far for us to be able to come back. The second thing I want you to think about related to repair is that when we think about having a conversation about repair, it's possible that we won't be able to resolve everything. So I want to bring up this quote that I particularly love, that repairing isn't about fully resolving everything. It's about showing up enough to care and to get the relationship moving forward. So it is possible that there are times when you might be able to resolve a misunderstanding. You might be able to set clear expectations. You might be able to maybe communicate a boundary or a need, and you're able to resolve it. And sometimes things happen that nothing's going to resolve it, because maybe it was a hurt moment and there's nothing that we can do to repair that directly. But how do we get the relation back so we can move forward? Now, don't be surprised that a lot of you may be thinking about personal relationships as well. I know coming into the holidays, there's a lot of anticipatory anxiety people are feeling of what is this going to be like? How am I going to navigate this? Especially for those who have some troubling relationships personally. So yes, so I want to reiterate, repair, if we can resolve it, if we can solve for the issues, awesome. But sometimes it's just, how do we get us back on track so we can keep moving forward? Okay, so let's talk about what does it mean to repair. And what I want to do is I want to share with you questions you can ask so that you can assess for yourself, or you can help someone else who's navigating this. Should I be repairing in this moment? Should I be evolving? And should I just let this go? So I'm going to give you a number of questions that I've been asking folks, and maybe even asking myself as we talk through this. So this is what our focus is going to be. So when we think about repair, repairing trust, what repair means is that it's rebuilding trust and connection through honest communication and accountability to restore the relationship. Those two key words, or those two practices, are highlighted very intentionally. We cannot repair if we are not able to be truthful with somebody and they are not able to be truthful with us. And often when there's a repair, there's something happened that there needs to be accountability. For some people, or some situations, both parties need to take accountability. In other situations, maybe one person more so than the other. The thing that we know is that I like to think of repair as, how do we come together to meet on the bridge? And one of the most effective ways that we can start to show up and to have that repair conversation is to be courageous enough to understand the role we played and to take ownership for that accountability, which FYI isn't always easy. Our egos get in the way, our sense of ourself gets in the way. Maybe we feel a little self-righteous, and maybe we don't want to admit that we did show up in a way that wasn't as productive or aligned with the views of ourselves. So let's talk about some of the questions that we can ask ourselves when thinking about, is this a moment to repair? And as always, my friends, you will get a copy of the recording. You will get a copy of the PowerPoint, and I'll bring them up so that for those of you who might want to take a picture, you can. The first one is just, what happened? Have I taken the time to fully explore, have I fully explored and acknowledged the harm or disconnection that occurred? Have I taken time to understand, maybe, when did it start happening? When did I notice it, right? Maybe it was, oh, this was going on in the person's life, and that's when I started to notice this disconnection happen. What role did I play in the situation? Have I taken accountability, or have I also considered the other person's perspective? What matters most to me in this relationship? And the second part of this question is really important. am I willing to invest the energy to work through this challenge? And I want to be really, I want to come from my heart on this. It's okay if the answer is no. It's okay if you're like, I just don't have it in me right now, or what happened was so egregious, or there has been a pattern of this that you might go, I've actually been working to invest in this relationship and I haven't been able to move forward. So I want to normalize that even when we talk about this idea of repair, not all relationships are worthy or deserve to be repaired, which I know maybe feels like a heavy statement, but boy, it's going to serve you. All right, let's go back to those questions, Nick. Has this person demonstrated openness to dialogue and repair in the past? I know that there are people in my life who either have brought hard stuff to me, or I've been able to bring hard stuff to them. And certainly that makes it way more likely for me to want to approach that. But let's say maybe I don't have enough data. And so I'm going to be thoughtful about how I approach it. Or maybe you have a lot of data to say, I don't think that they are going to be open to it. And then you get to make the choice of, do I pursue this conversation or not? The final question that is so important for us to ask, and this is again, I'm asking this through the lens of professional, but you can see how it applies personally. What is the cost to me? What is the cost to the team? What is the cost to our customers and the company if we do not repair this? If we do not have people who are willing to take accountability, who are willing to be honest with each other, and who are willing to get the relationship back on track? I will tell you, you all know that I wrote the book, Don't Feed the Elephants, to help people who fearfully avoid conflict start to navigate it. Teresa and I, and Jill Mata have been seeing firsthand the absolute damage that can happen to an organization when we're unwilling to have conversations, whether that's holding someone accountable, whether that is having the conversations we need to be having, whether it's apologizing. It is such a significant ripple effect. It is almost never just between those two people. It has a ripple effect on their peers, their colleagues. If they have people who report to them, there's a ripple effect there. It impacts your ability to be creative and collaborative and innovative. It impacts your ability to create a really engaging environment. And there is a significant cost that happens. Now, the thing that we need to think about when we think about repair is understanding that repair can't happen if both parties aren't willing. So why is this important? One of the questions that I ask folks, and I ask myself, which is again, that third question, am I willing to invest the energy in order to work through this challenge? Like, is this relationship worth it to me? Because if the answer is no, it's not going to be effective. We were doing a workshop a number of years ago, and somebody was talking about a strained relationship with a colleague, and they were like just so frustrated. And I said, well, do you want to repair it? And it's like, well, no, but I have to. I'm like, well, you're not going to be able to repair it. And we recognize that you might be willing to repair and the other person might not be. And this goes back to everything that we talk about with difficult conversations. We cannot control other people. We can only control ourselves. So I know that I want to show up aligned with my values, aligned with my integrity. I'm going to do what I can to try to make that happen. And if it doesn't, at least I can leave feeling good that I did everything I could. But it's really important to understand that repair just cannot happen if both parties aren't open and willing to it. Now, repair might need to happen because of, you find yourself interrupting somebody, you're talking over them. Maybe you accidentally leave somebody out of a really important meeting that would have been important for them to be a part of. Repair can happen when maybe something larger, more egregious happens, right? There's lots of layers and ways repair can show up. Now, sometimes a relationship shifts, maybe there's a disconnection. And instead of repairing, maybe it's just an evolution. I really do believe that relationships show up in our life to teach us, and then sometimes, right, they release us, right? Like there is a time and a place for the people in our lives. So let's talk about what it means to evolve. So evolving means adapting a relationship to reflect new roles, boundaries, or needs, and ideally allowing it to grow in a healthy direction. Here at the workplace is one of the most quintessential ways that we see, or one of the most quintessential situations of a relationship needing to evolve. And that is when somebody is a peer who now becomes a manager, right? That is a very common scenario. And a lot of times people don't want to address it, or they just move so hyper into an authoritative position instead of having a conversation around, hey, like our roles and responsibilities have shifted now. Let's talk about what that looks like now. What do we want to make sure we hold on to from being peers? And what does it need to look different now? Maybe the relationship and roles have shifted because of life experiences. Maybe somebody is dealing with some stuff and what they need from you is going to look very, very different. Evolving can look a lot of different ways. Evolving can look like having a very intentional conversation, or just the recognition of we used to be close and we're not anymore. And what does that look like to recognize that there's been an evolution? And for some people, no surprise, when we do this work and we talk to groups, there's a lot of folks that come to us and talk about relationships, marriages, partnerships, where they go, we've evolved into two very different people. And so now what do we do? Now there's the option of like, do we want to have a conversation? Do we want to try to repair that? Maybe we have tried and it's time to let it go, whatever that means for you. Sometimes at work, the relationships can evolve because maybe you used to work closely with somebody and now they're in a different department. Whatever the reason is, this is very common for relationships to shift and morph, right? And how do we recognize it? That doesn't mean we can't be sad about it. Doesn't mean we don't grieve when that happens, but I want us to be able to better name it so that we can understand, oh, this is what's happening, that our relationship is just evolving. And sometimes it evolves in really great ways. And other times it may be in ways that are painful. So here are some questions that we can ask ourselves if we feel like we're in a situation of a relationship needing to evolve. What has changed in this relationship? This is something that I like to ask clients, is just like, what's shifted? What has changed? What do you need now that maybe you didn't need before? How have the priorities at work shifted? How have the power dynamics shifted? Am I holding on to old expectations that are no longer realistic or helpful, right? There are times when maybe how somebody showed up was really served us, but maybe they're in a different life stage. Maybe they're having different challenges. Maybe their priorities have shifted. And so am I holding on to old expectations that are no longer realistic or helpful? What do I need from this relationship now? And what might they need? What does this look like? What would a healthy, evolved version of this relationship look like? And finally, just how can I, and even do I need to communicate my need for change, right? Whether that is acknowledging, I'll use Teresa and I as an example. We've been working together for almost 7 years now. And who we are now looks very different than who we were 6.5 years ago. Our life, like our home life, has shifted. Our needs have shifted. Our priorities have shifted. And so even being able to have that collaborative conversation, right? Go back to those collaborative commitments we talked about at the very early of our sessions. This is a way for us to explore it. Or maybe the relationship has evolved in that what you need as a company is different than what the person can deliver now. My relationship with Sally is evolving right now because she's very much on guard. Like she's giving some warning barks, so don't be surprised if you hear her in a moment like fully release. But there's lots of reasons why a relationship evolved, and sometimes we might want to have a conversation, and sometimes it's just acknowledging it, that yep, things have shifted, and what do I need to honor that shift? What do I need in this moment? How is that different? What do I need to communicate? Okay, so now let's talk about letting go. And this is one that can be so hard for folks, but it's really important. We only have so much time and energy to be able to give people in our life. I love the quote from the book, Time Management for Mortals. And he says, you're always going to disappoint somebody be intentional about who it is, which is kind of a maybe feels severe, but the reality is you will never be able to give everyone all things, and nor should you. And so let's talk about what letting go looks like. So what it means to let go is releasing a relationship with respect when it no longer serves one or both of the people. And then, like, how do we create the space for growth and well-being? I just posted something on LinkedIn this morning, and a gentleman had shared that a mentor of his had told him, when you let go of a relationship, there's absolutely uncertainty and there are unknowns. And there's also a space for new possibilities. So, what does this look like at work? Sometimes letting go might be somebody, like, we're not the fit for somebody anymore and what they need in their job. Maybe letting go is you realizing that the company you're with isn't the company that you should be with or you need to be with right now. Maybe letting go is creating more space with somebody who's been in your life, and you're creating some space so that it can be healthier and you can be healthier. There's a lot of ways letting go can look. And sometimes, right, there might be conversations, and sometimes it's just us getting clear with ourselves that this isn't a relationship I'm going to invest in the same way. And one thing I want to say about letting go, because this is a heavier one, is that letting go doesn't mean that it still might be hard or that there might be loss or grief with it. You can know it's the right decision and still maybe feel some sadness. And that can go for if you have to fire somebody, if you decide to leave a company, right? There's a whole host of feelings that can come up. So what are some questions we can ask ourselves when we think about letting go? The first is this relationship adding value, or is it more often a source of pain or resentment, or insert whatever language is valuable for you, right? Is our relationship at work, are we adding value? Are we able to have more moments where we work together with maybe some ease, or is it just a constant struggle? And again, we might not jump here unless we've been able to have that conversation. This is a really important one, especially as Midwesterners who we have I'm speaking to my Midwest friends. I know we have friends from all over joining, but for a lot of us, it's like, keep the peace. We've been raised with this sort of false sense of harmony, but am I staying out of obligation, fear, or guilt rather than genuine connection or care? How would my life feel without this relationship? Would I feel more aligned with my values or freer to go? Another way that we ask this of clients is, how would the culture feel without this person in the organization? What would be possible for the team members around them, particularly when it's a situation where they may be bringing some really toxic traits to the table? Am I holding on to who this person used to be or who I wish they could become, right? I will say this as a manager, that there have been times when I see so much possibility in someone and I want something for them, but it's not what they want, or it's not what or they're not at a place that they are ready to give what it needs to take. And so, I always say as a manager, I cannot care more for your development than you do. But this can apply also from a personal perspective. Am I holding on to who this person used to be, or even who I used to be with this person? And then finally, what am I afraid of losing by letting go? Is it a fear that's keeping me stuck? What does this look like? And this can be a question that we can ask as teams when we're facing a difficult situation. We can think about this with clients that we might want to depart with. I mean, there have been times, I can speak from experience, that we have had clients that it became clear that the money we were getting from it was not going to be worth the absolute pain to do the work. And I'm not saying that lightly. Like, you can imagine that for us to step away from a client, it has to be pretty significant. But we have to ask ourselves, what's the cost of staying with this client if the pain is so significant to try to help them out? So let's talk quickly about phrases we can use when initiating repair, when harmed, or when you're the one who feels disrespected, or you're on the receiving end of something that feels like a regrettable event. And again, as always, my friends, this is our language. You find the words that work for you, but I want to show you what it can look like. And to tie it into all of our previous sessions, this aligns really beautifully with the opening statement work that we've done. How do we come from a place of curiosity? So you see this thread that we've been trying to pull through all these sessions. So initiating repair when harmed. Can we talk about something that's been on my mind? I value our relationship, and I'd like to have a conversation about something that's been real difficult for me. One of my favorite questions to ask when a moment happens, or even if it's afterwards, when maybe somebody does something and you're like, man, what? Like that felt really awful, or I don't understand where they were coming from. Asking the question, what were you hoping I'd feel or understand in that moment? Or another way that I like to use it is, how did you want me to feel when you said that? Like if somebody says something, you're like, was that sharp? Like, I don't know. Or maybe even if they say something, you're like, oh yeah, that was real sharp. Like one of the ways we can hold up a mirror is to say, hey, how did you want me to feel when you said that? Right? That's one of the ways we can initiate a conversation. So let's go back. One more phrase that you can consider is, it's important to me that I share how I experienced this meeting, this project, and I also want to hear how it landed for you. So these are just ways that we might choose to engage and go, hey, can we talk about it? I will tell you that I am so fortunate to be surrounded by people in my life, professionally and personally, who are doing this work. And when somebody says it, like, hey, I value our relationship and I need you to know this is what I need in a friendship. Can we talk about that conversation? I do get like a gut punch of just like, but I know it's important and I know it's necessary. So I hold steady. I stay in that heat. I get curious. I get curious with them. I get curious with myself. And more often than not, we leave better because we took the time to have that conversation. Now, let's talk about what it looks like when maybe you were the one who caused harm, right? And you realize after the fact, because there are so many people that I'll be in conversations with and they'll say, oh yeah, I just didn't show up the best. And I was like, oh, did you follow up with them? Well, no. Should I? Can I? When you become aware, even if they don't bring it up to your attention, even if maybe your assumptions that it was harmful wasn't how they received it, it is still valuable to have that conversation to show them you've been thinking about it. So here are just some real simple phrases. You know, I thought about how I showed up and I recognize I didn't handle that situation the way I should have. I want to acknowledge that something I said or did, I think may have hurt you. I realized that what I did or said wasn't fair or helpful, and I just want to own that. You know, when I did blank, I can see how that may have caused this impact, and I'm really sorry for that. Apologies, genuine apologies, are one of the most powerful things we can practice to build a culture of trust, of safety, of accountability, so that we can create a culture that is high performing, where people not only do good work, but they feel good about how they do it. So this has been a lot of information, and I know that there's a heaviness to this topic, but it's so important. So here's what I'm curious to hear from you in the chat. And this is just our final reflection before we go into next steps of what's going to happen with all these recordings and all of that. But what I'm curious about is what has become clearer for you as you think about repair, as you think about evolving, or as you think about letting go. And we don't need to know details. We don't need to know specific relationships. But what I'm curious about is, what connections are you making? What has become clear for you? Where's the opportunity? Maybe you're like, oh, I actually have this person that we do this really well. Whatever it is, I'm curious to hear from you in the chat. What has become clearer for you as you think about repair, evolving, and letting go? There's Sally. There she is. And if it's something that maybe you're not ready to share, you can always reach out to us and share personally. But I do want to hear from a few of you. Like I've shared, this has been a very resonant topic for people recently, and it's one that we're really passionate about. And so if there's more that would be valuable for us to think about and explore, let us know. I want to be thoughtful of time. And so let's talk about what's next. So we know that we've had 7 sessions over the last year. We know that we've been sending you links to YouTube, but that might not be the most convenient. For those of you who know, we have developed an online platform we call the Leader Campus. So what's going to happen is we are going to register you, each of you who've signed up for these series, in the next couple of days. So you'll be receiving enrollment and login information for the leadercampus.com, and you will have full access to all of the recordings and all of the handouts that go with this information. So, and I want to just honor a couple people. I'm having a classic Midwesterner, so having some specific phrases is helpful. Absolutely. I mean, this isn't something we're taught, right? And that it's okay to let go. Yeah, Rosalind, I mean, this is something that is, it's so important because again, we only have so much time and energy, and how do we want to spend it? Yeah, Michelle, so good to see you. How you handle the conversation will allow the process to be easier. Absolutely. Yeah, recognizing that not all relationships can or should be saved, and boundaries are necessary. Sometimes doesn't mean they're comfortable, but they are necessary. So please feel free, for those of you who want to hang on and keep sharing. Teresa and I are going to hang on for a bit, but I just wanted to take a final moment and thank you so much for showing up for this webinar series, for showing up every month that we've come together. If we aren't connected, please be sure to connect with myself and Teresa on LinkedIn. Feel free to send us an email at any point when you have situations that come up. We will get the recording sent to you, all of the goodies that we've been talking about. And we are so grateful that you are making this investment, not only in the people in your life, but most importantly for you. So thank you for trusting us to be on this journey with you. So thank you all so much. Please have a really great rest of your day. Teresa and I are always here to support you. And we just hope you have an amazing rest of your day. So be well, everyone. Rest, rehydrate, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate you. Oh yeah, Rosalind, I can send you that workbook. We can make that happen. Thanks, Colin. I appreciate it. Oh, thank you. We love this challenge of the 30 minutes. It forces us to get real tight with our messaging. So thank you. And get some funky royalty-free music going again.